What if I told you that sitting down on a Sunday afternoon to study a new skill for, like, 3 uninterrupted hours might actually be making you worse at it?
Well, I mean, it sounds completely counterintuitive, right? Because we've all been conditioned to believe that mastery requires these, grueling marathon sessions.
Right. If you aren't suffering over a desk, you aren't really learning.
Exactly.
But think about it like trying to overwater a houseplant. You just dump an entire gallon of water into the pot all at once, genuinely thinking you're helping the plant grow.
Which is a terrible idea.
Yeah, because the soil can only absorb so much moisture at a given time. The rest of the water just runs right off the surface and, well, ruins your living room floor.
I've definitely ruined a rug that way.
We all have. And according to the fascinating source material we are diving into today, that is exactly what happens to your brain when you try to binge learn a language.
Right, because your cognitive soil is totally saturated. I mean, most of those intricate grammar rules you spend hours memorizing, they just run right out of your short-term memory by Tuesday morning.
So welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at this really engaging conversation from our source material between two speakers, James and Sarah, and it's essentially a curated B1 level English learning methodology.
But let's be clear up front here. We are not going to treat you like a student and run through some boring vocabulary spelling test.
Definitely not. We're here to dissect exactly why James and Sarah's specific approach is so effective. They limit active learning to just 10 minutes a day, and we're going to explore 10 specific words they use in their chat, looking at them as almost like a psychological tool set.
Yeah, it's really about understanding the mechanics of how human beings actually acquire conversational fluency. And the core philosophy underpinning this whole thing is spaced repetition.
Right.
It's the idea that consistent, low stress, microdoses of exposure build up your neural pathways way faster than massive bursts of effort.
Okay, so let's jump right into the conversation between James and Sarah. The first word they highlight is absolutely. And this is about how language allows us to project confidence.
Which is huge for B1 learners, because when you first learn to speak a new language, you usually just want to survive the interaction,
Yeah.
right? You're operating purely on functional data exchange.
Right, like where's the bathroom or
Yeah.
how much does this cost? Very transactional.
Exactly. But James and Sarah point out that a word like absolutely represents a massive cognitive leap. It's the moment you transition from mere survival to actually having a personality in English.
I love how they frame it. It functions almost like a conversational highlighter pen. Like if someone asks, are you coming to the party? And you just say yes. I mean, that's fine. It works.
But it's a bit flat.
Yeah. But saying absolutely takes a neon yellow marker and highlights your enthusiasm. You're giving 100% agreement.
And what's interesting linguistically is how it acts as an intensifier. James uses it to modify an extreme state of being. You don't just say you are tired, you say you're absolutely exhausted. It gives you emotional leverage.
That makes total sense. Now, here is where I want to push back a little on how language is traditionally taught versus how native speakers actually use it out in the wild.
Oh, with the word academic.
Yes. So our second word is academic. It's an adjective related to universities, right? Like having a strong academic background or the academic year from September to June. That sounds like a universal compliment.
Well, in formal context, sure, it denotes prestige. But as Sarah points out in the material, it has a bit of a societal shadow. Native speakers frequently use it as a polite insult.
Wait, really? An insult?
Yeah. Like if I tell you that a new nonfiction book I just read was quite academic, I'm not really praising the author's rigorous research.
Well, you're signaling to me that it was dry, totally inaccessible, and a massive chore to read.
Exactly. Much like a boring old professor droning on in a lecture hall, you can also use it as a noun, like he is an academic, meaning a university researcher. But that duality of the adjective is what makes B1 language acquisition so fascinating. You learn the dictionary definition, but then you have to absorb the cultural context.
That is such a good point. And that duality bridges perfectly into how we navigate the world, physically and digitally. The next word James and Sarah use is access.
Oh, this one is absolute gold for learners.
Because it's a zero conversion word, which, radically reduces the cognitive load for your brain. You memorize one spelling, one pronunciation, and suddenly you can do two entirely different grammatical jobs.
Right. It's seamlessly both a noun and a verb.
So as a noun, you might say a public building has wheelchair access, or you talk about the sheer joy of getting free access to an art museum on a Sunday.
Who doesn't love free access?
Exactly. But then without having to learn a complicated new verb form, You can use it as an action. You sit down at your office desk and tell your colleague, hey, I can't access my email.
What's brilliant here is how naturally the vocabulary maps onto modern life. We use the exact same word to describe walking through a physical door as we do to open a cloud-based spreadsheet.
And once you've secured access to a new city, your immediate next priority is shelter, right?
Right.
Which leads us to word number 4, accommodation.
Ah, yes. Where we stay. A house, a hotel, a hostel.
I find the cultural quirks around this specific word so revealing. There is a very distinct divide in how this idea is spoken about across the Atlantic.
The divergence between British and American English is super stark here. In the UK, accommodation is an uncountable noun. It's an abstract concept of shelter. But in American English, it's almost always pluralized.
Where they say accommodations with an S on the end. Why is that?
Well, it goes back to how Americans historically viewed lodging. It wasn't seen as just shelter, but rather as a series of individual services. You were booking specific physical accommodations, a bed, a hot meal, a stable for your horse.
Oh, wow. So you're buying lists of things.
Exactly. And that pluralized view just baked itself into the everyday vernacular.
That's fascinating. But whether it has an as on the end or not, the real-world application is the same. There's this brilliant, hilarious cautionary tale James brings up about a traveler booking their summer accommodation online.
Oh, I loved this part.
Right. So they think they've found an absolute steal, a gorgeous room right in the city center. They arrive, turn the key, and it's essentially a broom closet.
The dreaded wide-angle lens trick. It is a harsh rite of passage.
Yeah, it really is. The takeaway there isn't just linguistic. It's a fundamental rule of survival. Always read the reviews.
Definitely. So from physical real estate, James and Sarah move into digital spaces. And here we hit what might be the most versatile tool in this entire conversation. Word number 5, account.
I really view this as the Swiss Army knife of the English language.
That is the perfect metaphor for it.
Because if you pull out the main blade of that Swiss Army knife, you have the foundational financial use, a bank account, where you keep your money.
Simple enough. But then you fold that out and you pull out the little scissors, and that represents your digital identity.
Right. Your Netflix account, your Instagram account. Sarah makes this incredibly relatable observation that we are all walking around with 50 different online accounts, and we possess absolutely zero memory of the passwords for any of them.
It is the defining frustration of modern life. But then you get to the third tool on the knife, which is the verb form. Like when your boss asks you to account for a massive error or to account for your time.
Oh, and don't forget the phrase on account of.
Right, which simply means because of. Like the football match was canceled on account of the rain.
Okay, let's zoom in on that verb form for a second. Accounting for your time. This brings us directly to the core mechanism that this entire deep dive is built upon, the 10-minute rule.
Right, the absolute rejection of the binge study myth.
Now, I have to be completely honest with you. I was incredibly skeptical when I first read this. I'm very much an overwater the houseplant kind of person. I get hyper-fixated.
Same here.
So, are James and Sarah really telling me that 10 minutes a day genuinely moves the needle more than a focused 3-hour session?
It absolutely does. 10 minutes a day while you're walking or, sitting in traffic, doing sports, or just taking a short break, it leads to noticeable fluency within weeks. It's not magic, it's consistency.
Okay, but how?
Well, our brains are essentially highly efficient prediction engines. They ruthlessly prune information that doesn't seem immediately relevant. When you study for 3 hours on a Sunday, your brain categorizes that as an isolated, high-stress event.
Like a one-off emergency.
Exactly. It dumps the data soon after to make room for Monday's actual problems. But when you engage with this material for just 10 minutes every single day, you're tricking your brain. You're sending a continuous signal that this new language is a constant requirement for your daily environment.
Wow. So by listening to a deep dive like this for just 10 minutes every day, you force those neural pathways to become permanent. Which, by the way, is exactly why you should subscribe to this show right now and turn on notifications. You need that daily trigger to remind you to put your 10 minutes in while you're doing the dishes.
Exactly. Turn on those notifications.
And committing to that daily rhythm naturally leads us to word number 6, achievement.
Which is a very positive word. It's a successful result requiring effort and skill. You don't just stumble into an achievement.
Like earning a university degree. That's a massive achievement you put on a CV. But James and Sarah scale it down to the micro level, too. Just making it through your 10 minutes of language practice without picking up your phone to check social media. That is a legitimate achievement.
It truly is. And the phrase to internalize here is the sense of achievement. like the pride you feel after running a 5K.
But to get that feeling, you have to execute the action.
Which brings us to word number 7, act.
Another brilliant short word with huge utility, noun and verb.
You can commit a kind act for a stranger, that's a noun. Or you can talk about the second act of a movie, but as a verb it means to behave or move quickly, like she acts like she doesn't care.
Or acting quickly in an emergency.
Right. But Sarah highlights this idiom in the conversation that I absolutely adore. Idioms are notoriously the hardest part of fluency because they don't translate literally. You definitely need cultural context.
The idiom is to act your age. And Sarah shares this story about a 34-year-old man who gets scolded by his mother on the street. She tells him to act his age. Why? Because he was joyfully jumping up and down in a rain puddle.
I love that. A 34-year-old puddle jumper. Act your age is fundamentally a reprimand. It's telling someone their behavior is inappropriate for their age. But teaching it through the image of an adult jumping in a puddle, it sticks in your mind because it's funny.
It's so relatable. Now, we just talked about the focus required to not look at your phone during your 10 minutes of practice. That brings us to word number 8, the thing's constantly trying to distract us. Ads.
Short for advertisement, or advert in British English.
Promoting a new phone on Instagram, pop-ups, video ads. James paints this painfully accurate picture of just staring blankly at a screen, enduring that agonizing 5-second countdown until you can finally click skip ad.
What's fascinating is the language economy here. When something becomes so pervasive, society physically shortens the word. We simply don't have the time to say advertisement when we see them constantly.
Seriously. James says he tried to count the ads he saw in a single day and gave up after hitting 200. 200! We are swimming in commercial messaging.
They are the ultimate friction points.
But if ads represent chaotic noise, James and Sarah contrast this beautifully with word number 9, how we deliberately grow our environments. An addition.
Which is adding something to something else.
The phrase in addition to is highly useful. It means also or as well as. Like saying someone speaks French in addition to English, or ordering dessert in addition to a main course.
It sounds very natural for a B1 speaker. You can also use it for physical things, like a new cafe being a great addition to the neighborhood.
Or my absolute favorite, announcing a baby is a new addition to the family. It's such a warm way to use the language.
It really is.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the final word, number 10. And it represents the perspective we should take toward the entire language journey. To admire.
To look at someone or something with great respect and appreciation.
You can admire an entrepreneur for building a business from nothing, or admire the physical beauty of a sunset.
But Sarah focuses on the noun form, admiration. Having admiration for adult language learners, because learning a second language takes immense courage.
It really does. You have to willingly sound foolish sometimes, make mistakes, mispronounce basic things in public. It is deeply admirable to study every single day and be that vulnerable.
It absolutely is. So just to recap what we've covered from James and Sarah today.
Yeah.
We looked at the confidence of absolutely, the dual nature of academic, and the flexibility of access and act.
We covered accommodation, the many uses of an account, achieving an achievement, skipping ads, making an addition, and having admiration.
10 words. And the overarching philosophy here is that you don't need grammar drills. You just need a daily habit, 10 minutes a day. But, this brings up a really fascinating tension, something I want you to mull over today as you finish your walk or your commute.
How about technology?
Yeah. We live in an era where live translation software is advancing at warp speed. Soon, we might all have earbuds that flawlessly translate conversations in real time.
The sci-fi universal translator. It's basically here.
Right. So if tech can outsource translation for us, why should we still spend 10 minutes a day building these neural pathways? I'd argue the true benefit isn't just data exchange anymore. It's the cognitive elasticity it gives your brain.
That's a great point.
It's the empathy required to understand a culture's weird idioms, like a 34-year-old jumping in a puddle. Outsourcing fluency might save time, but what happens to our ability to truly connect when we stop doing the admirable work of rewiring our own minds?
Wow. We might lose the very friction that makes human communication meaningful.
Something to chew on during your next 10-minute practice session. Remember, look at your daily routine. Find that wasted 10-minute pocket waiting for the bus, folding laundry, and convert it into a powerful new habit.
Keep going. You are doing amazingly well.
Absolutely. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you never miss a session. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.